Today on Tuesday, June 24th, 2025, we're going to be starting out with our severe weather outlook. And so we're going to have severe weather possible today in the northeastern U.S., across the Ohio Valley and Midwest, and into portions of the Great Plains and into the southern Appalachians today. On Wednesday, we have a pretty large slight risk, level 2 out of 5 risk into the southeastern U.S. for severe weather, a broad marginal risk into the eastern U.S., into Ohio Valley, Midwest, and north central U.S. once again for tomorrow on Wednesday. On Thursday, June 26th, we have a severe weather risk, a marginal risk into the southeastern U.S., mid-Atlantic, into the Midwest, and then into North Dakota and Montana for Thursday. Finally, on Friday, we have a pretty large slight risk across the Dakotas into northern Nebraska and then into a small section of northwestern Minnesota. Now looking at our precipitation on the GFS weather model, and so we're going to have once again those storms out here into portions of the high plains and then across the Midwest once again today into this evening, and even across portions of the Appalachians and Northeast, and then continuing that on even further into Wednesday night. You can see widespread coverage of storms, especially into the southeast and into the Midwest and north central U.S. Going into Thursday, once again, quite a large area of storms across the central U.S., southeastern U.S., and then to the mid-Atlantic. Going into Friday, where we have that slight risk over portions of the Dakotas, you'll probably see some more storms there with more of a synoptic scale feature with your low pressure kind of well up into Canada. So with that low pressure there, you're going to have more of a kind of organized storm threat most likely across those areas. So it won't be necessarily what we'll be dealing with for the next couple of days. We'll have a little bit more of a organized threat there, probably with a hail wind and maybe a tornado risk with that. But we'll have to look at that a little bit further as we get closer to that on Friday. But after that, as we get into the weekend, really not much besides just daily storms across the southeast into the central U.S. and maybe a low pressure looks to pop up there into the southwestern U.S., promoting severe weather maybe across the central U.S. again, but nothing really too crazy at this time. Even as we get into next week as well, not a whole lot showing up besides daily storms, just your average daily summer storms across these areas, especially with all the moisture and high temperatures that will lead to plenty of instability for those storms. Now looking at our instability for these thunderstorms, and so we have 2,000, 3,000, even 4,000 joules per kilogram of surface-based CAPE in some isolated areas, but mainly 2,000 and 3,000 joules per kilogram of surface-based CAPE, and that is plenty of instability for thunderstorms to develop. And so getting into Thursday here, quite a bit of instability across the Midwest and central U.S. as a whole. Going into Friday, quite a bit showing up here into the north central U.S., where we already have that slight risk across the Dakotas, a small section of Minnesota and Nebraska. And then getting into the weekend, another day of instability, of extreme instability that is, on Saturday across portions of the upper Midwest. Then going into early next week, that starts to kind of calm down a little bit, and some of that moisture may try to slowly make its way out, but still you'll have plenty of instability left for storms well into the southern U.S. maybe by sometime next week. But really after that, as we get into the middle and latter half of next week, we don't know a whole lot about just yet. I'm taking a look at our temperature anomalies here, and so starting out with Wednesday tomorrow. And so what we have here is this basically just shows us how many degrees above or below average a certain area will be. So obviously the red is going to be above average, the blues and kind of pinks and purples will be below average. And so heat in the eastern U.S. will continue for at least a few more days into the weekend, but still you're going to have some actually cooler below average temperatures into portions of the central U.S. maybe by this weekend, and then going into Saturday. Let me go back a little bit here. Really, by Saturday, you're going to have actually some below average temperatures starting to move into the northwestern U.S., even into the kind of southwestern U.S. as well, but slightly above average temperatures continuing into Saturday. As you get into Sunday, still some above average temperatures starting to move into the northwestern U.S., and then below average temperatures into portions of the central U.S. with slightly above average temperatures, into the eastern U.S. Then as you get to next week, you're probably going to have some heat really build into the western U.S., but maybe some relief with maybe slightly below average temperatures into portions of the central and eastern U.S. by the middle of next week, maybe on the 2nd or 3rd of July. I'm going to have to continue to watch that. But as we get to the 4th, maybe some pretty below average or maybe even normal temperatures across quite a bit of the U.S. showing up on the EPS weather model here, the ensembles. So we'll have to continue to watch that, and maybe we can see a cool down by the time we get into the middle portion or latter half of next week. So that'll be it for today's update. I appreciate all of y'all watching, and I hope y'all have a great Tuesday.